Jen here from Backroad Buddies, and the video we want to share with you today is about a 1-year review of our Winnebago EKKO. Now we've had our EKKO now for a year, and 7.5 months of that year have been on the road continuously. So we felt it was about time we would report back to you about how things went. Now this is a rather in-depth review, so we're not only reviewing the Winnebago EKKO itself, but how we organized it, mods we've made to it, new gear we brought along with us. So this is really an in-depth review of our whole setup. Now this is the first of 3 videos about the review, and this first video covers mainly the interior of the EKKO. So it includes the entry door, the front cab area, the dinette area, the kitchen, the bathroom, and the bedroom. The second video covers mainly the exterior areas of the EKKO. So it includes the heating and air conditioning, the outdoor kitchen, the gear garage, the roof, and the awning. The third video covers mainly the systems. So it includes the propane, the water systems, the electrical systems, drivability, and our overall impressions. Now since this is a rather long video, feel free to look in the description. There's a timeline for each of the sections of this video. We broke it up into areas of the EKKO. So look down there if you just want to skip to a particular area, or if you just want to, view some now and then come back to it, you can use that timeline to jump right to a particular section. So let's dive in. Part 1 is the entry door. Now, coming from a camper van, this entry door has always kind of baffled us, but evidently it's pretty typical of an RV entry door. Notice right off there's 2 different locks, one that actually locks kind of a deadbolt and the other one that locks the handle. Why you need 2 of those, I'm not quite sure. And then here's the handle to release it from the inside, and you can also lock both locks from the inside as well. And then you come to the screen, and opening this is fine, but then when you go to close it, we added this handle because there was no handle to close it. And so if we come inside, see what this looks like. So then if you're on the inside and you want to close that other exterior door, there's this little slider. So to release the screen door, and then grab this door, and then actually if you release them both at the same time, which takes 2 hands, so I can't really do that, let's see, then the 2 doors stay together, which is somewhat nice because there's this nice strong magnet here that'll hold them together. However, I had an issue with that because when I'm opening this, my hand's naturally here, and that's a really strong magnet, and I actually pinched my finger once and got a blood blister from that magnet snapping on my finger. But when you're on the inside, there's no way of opening anything unless you slide open the screen or this little door. So we actually added this little device. It's from Camco. It's really basically a stick that will release that latch from the inside. So at least when you're just having the screen closed and going in and out, you don't have to keep opening and closing that slide. So we really like that, along with the handle to help work the door as well. Now the screen door also has a lock, and note that each one of these locks is a different key. So instead of carrying 3 different keys with us, we just get in the habit of only locking one of the locks when we leave the rig. And we rarely lock the screen door. Usually if we just have the screen door open, we're here around the rig and we're not leaving it. Part 2 is the front cab area. Now in the front cab area here, we love all these storage cubbies. Winnebago provided these two. We originally had a television here. We pulled that out and we actually made this into a third cubby, which we like. And then plus you have the, the cubbies that come with the Ford Transit up here. Now we originally stored our seat cushion. The EKKO comes with 2 of these seat cushions, so it raises these front 2 seats up higher so they're at a nice height for the dinette table. But we found that we only needed the 1 cushion for starters, because we didn't need it for the passenger seat because we were able to keep the lagoon table at a low height that we didn't need the cushion. Now we originally stored the cushion on the back of the passenger seat here and then would put it in the driver's seat when we got to camp. But we found it was just as easy to throw it on the dinette bench there. And so we didn't actually store it there anymore because it just got in the way when you were trying to rotate the seat. Now what I like about these cubbies is I can reach things in these from while we're driving down the road. I'm in the passenger seat. I mean, some of it's a bit of a reach, but then again, I'm 6 foot with really long arms, so a shorter person that may not work for. Now, unfortunately, the center cubby that we made, there's a little bit of a rattle in it, and it doesn't bother me, but Keith doesn't like rattles, so he actually started taking this back apart again. So he's going to try to see if he can fix that rattle so it doesn't drive him nuts. Now what we didn't like about these cubbies is it can get extremely hot in here. Because there isn't really any insulation in here. There is in the rest of the RV, but not up here in the cab area. So unfortunately, I started out storing my camera gear in here, and I actually destroyed 2 GoPro batteries because they swelled up on me, and I had issues with my PowerShot camera. I went to my backup, which was also stored up here, but then I started storing it. I started putting my camera gear in between the seats when we're on the road, and then when we got to camp, I would put them up on the dinette table just to keep them out of this heat, because I think I destroyed not only 1 but 2 of my PowerShots, and I replaced it when I got home. The other thing we have up here is our Wii Boost, and when that turns on, that gets really hot in there. But the way we solve that issue, I don't know where oh, here it is. We actually bought a DC fan that we clip on here, and we blow air directly on there, and that helps keep that cool when we have it on. And then our Verizon hotspot, which we originally had in here, we actually mounted up here on the wall to get it out of that hot area. So just keep that in mind when you're storing things up here, that it can get really, really hot. Now, both of these seats do swivel around. Let me do that for you. So this one, when we got to camp, we would always swivel around. The driver's side is a little harder to swivel. Let me show you how that works. What makes the driver's side a little harder is you have to put the handbrake down, and then in order to clear the steering wheel, you have to make sure the back of the seat is kind of cranked forward a little bit. And then it just barely clears that steering wheel. And then of course when you get it around, then you have to crank this thing back again. So there's only 2 of us traveling here. Now it's nice to have this turned around if you want to sit together at the dinette table and have dinner, because it's really kind of tight to sit side by side. It's better to sit across. But with the lagoon table set up over there, we found that one person sits there at the lagoon table and one person sits at the dinette, that we really didn't need this driver's seat turned around all the time. So here's what it looks like, someone sitting at the lagoon table. So this is nice for working or for eating. Now the one thing I did like about having this seat turned around is I'm tall enough with long enough legs that I can sit at the dinette and put my feet up on the driver's seat. Now, a shorter person or someone with shorter legs, that wouldn't work for them, but it does for me. So I kind of like to turn the driver's seat around a little more often than Keith does, because he, I don't know if his feet doesn't reach, but he generally isn't the one sitting in the dinette table anyway. Now we didn't care for the shade curtain that came with Winnebago, so we actually replaced them with these van-made gear shades. So during the day, if we wanted shade or privacy up here, we would put these shades in, and we like them a lot. But just putting these in still allowed us to have access to these seats if we needed to use them during the day. But at night, we actually do like the insulated curtain that Winnebago provided. And every night we would put that up for kind of additional privacy and mainly insulation. So that really insulated it out. It goes up pretty easy. What we noticed was that you only need to put up the top snaps. You don't need to attach the side snaps. So that actually makes it much quicker to go up and down. There is a zipper that allows you access to the cab, but we mainly put it up at night, so we normally didn't need access there. But with the side snaps not attached, it was also easy to get in and out of there without working the zipper. Now when we get to camp, we always put this lagoon table in, but in order to save a little time, set up and tear down, we always leave this arm attached to the tabletop and store it away behind the bench seat. So it makes it easier to set up and take down. Now most of the organization that we started with worked for us pretty well. There were a couple things we changed, and one of them was up here in this front cubby. We started out with having a bag of our extra cables, and then our first aid kit was way in the back in those boxes between the beds. But we quickly realized that even though we probably didn't really access either one of those more often than the other, we thought it was a good idea to have our first aid kit a lot more accessible, especially up front if we need to grit it quickly. So we swapped that. So we put the first aid kit here and put the bag of cables in the bedroom. Now before we left for the season, we had tinting done on the driver and passenger door windows along with an eyebrow across the windshield. However, we got a crack in the windshield before we even got on the road. And so we had to have the windshield replaced. So we took it to Safelite, and it actually took us a while for them to order the right windshield, because I guess there's several different types of Ford Transits and they're all different windshields. Don't ask me why. So we got the windshield replaced, but then Safelite wouldn't do the recalibration. So we actually had to take it down to a truck service center and get the windshield camera recalibrated. But we didn't have time to get that eyebrow replaced up there, so we kind of missed having that. We did similar tinting in our camper van and liked it, and really liked having that tinted eyebrow. I mean, we still had the tint in the door windows, but yeah, we'll have to get that eyebrow replaced there. Now, our camper van that we had before the EKKO was also built on a Ford Transit, but we did notice some differences between the two Ford Transits, and it may have had to do with model and trim, and they are different lengths, but there were some things that we didn't like on this Ford Transit that we liked on the other one. One is these folding mirrors. On the one on the EKKO that we have, these are manual. And we got a little spoiled on our camper van because they were powered, so you could be sitting in the driver's seat and operate both of them, which is, there's cases where that's kind of convenient instead of having to get out and walk around to the other side to fold the mirrors in when you're parked in a tight area. But to be fair, our mirrors on our other Ford Transit were smaller, so I don't know if that's an option that Winnebago can opt for from Ford or not. The other one was just kind of weird. It took us a while even on our camper van to realize it was there. But on our camper van, this part of the bumper here was open, and you could actually use it as a step up to reach the windshield when you want to wash the windshield, which was really nice. I mean, we're 6 foot tall and we have issues reaching that whole windshield to wash it, so I can only imagine someone shorter. That step up would really be useful. But if you noticed on this Ford Transit, they put this grill here, so you can't use that as a step up. And I don't know if Ford added that or Winnebago did, but I don't know if there was an issue using that as a step up, but I kind of missed that. And then the third and last thing we noticed was the actual keys. The Ford has this little, what I call little switchblade thing that swings out when you hit the button. Only I find when I keep this in my pants pocket, that accidentally pops open all the time, and then I've got this key poking me in my side, so I don't really appreciate that either. Part 3 is the dinette area. Now this was a great area to either sit and work. There's plenty of desk space. These seats are pretty comfortable. We generally wouldn't both sit in here. I mean, there are 2 seats here, and they do both have seat belts, so if you need to travel with 2 more people, you can do that. But it's for comfort, yeah, I kind of like a little more elbow room. So usually one of us would sit here and one would sit over in the passenger seat with the lagoon table. But we would use this, I mean, if we were set up for camp, this table was always up. We were either eating or working on it or using it as a staging area for cooking. But we also used it when we would like stop someplace for a quick picnic lunch and it wasn't nice outside. So this table actually goes up and down pretty easily. So yeah, that's down. You just pop this up. And that is the one time where we might sit side by side, as if we're just stopping real quick to have lunch, and we would just both eat off of this table instead of taking the time to spin the seat around in the passenger seat. What we also liked about the dinette is you had, you know, a window here, you had the screen door here, and a window out here. So, and plus, if you don't have the front shades in, you've got a wonderful, you know, 180-degree view out of the rig while you're sitting there, which is nice. You also had some nice cross ventilation between this window and the screen door or the other kitchen window. Now we also added a DC fan above the door here, which just adds a little bit more, especially if it's a really calm day but it's warm and you just want a breeze blowing on you, or you have everything closed up and the air conditioner's running. It just adds a little more airflow blowing on you and just makes it a little more comfortable. Now, a couple of organizational things we added to the dinette area. We added 2 command hooks here. This is where we hang our hats. We have like 2 floppy hats we hike with, and Keith has a ball cap that he hangs there, and it's a nice convenient place to be able to grab when you're getting in and out of the rig. And then the other thing is actually underneath here. So let me get down here. Is on the front side here, we added this little net thing, and we put both our pairs of slippers and our 2 pairs of shower flip-flops in here. And it's out of the way, you know, it's space that we're not going to use for anything else. It's not, if you can see that it really doesn't get in the way of our feet either. So that worked out really well. Now, the one thing we didn't like about the dinette area actually didn't become apparent to us until later on in the season. It's normally just the two of us, so when we're traveling, we're both sitting in the front seats, and we don't have anybody sitting in these dinette seats. But they are belted seats, so it actually turned out we had to go to a memorial service, and we picked up a relative on the way. And so she traveled with us for a few days and rode in these bench seats. Now, the issue with that is there's no cup holders back here. So she had no place to do it. Well, we rigged up something temporary. We actually took a roll of tape and double-sided taped it to the tabletop, and it was the perfect size for a cup or a water bottle, so that worked out. And she actually loved driving down the road with a table here, and she had her little iPad and would work on it, and so she really loved riding back here. So that was kind of nice to know that it was a comfortable riding back here going down the road, because we only sit here when we're camped. So that was kind of a nice little experiment, if you will. Now, initially, I would always plug my laptop in to the AC power here with the, this is kind of the brick that comes with at least comes with an Apple product. And I would just always leave that plugged in, so even when we're traveling, it would just lay there. But that's a lot of cord, and it would get in the way. So we actually scrapped that idea. And went and got the problem with some of the DC outlets is they don't really give you a lot of power, and I use a lot of power on my laptop, so we actually bought a more powerful little adapter here so it'll charge my laptop faster. And then we just have this USB-C plug. This is a much shorter cord, and we leave that plugged in all the time. Let's get the other one out of the way. And so just having that hang there wasn't a big of a deal, or as big of a deal as the other one, and it just cleaned things up in here. And we just always leave that plugged in, so it was all nice and handy. Even when we're traveling down the road, we can easily pop the table up and down, and it's not in the way. And it just really worked out nice. Part 4 is the kitchen. The kitchen really turned out really nice. We were really happy with it. We had a lot of options to cook with. We had the 2-burner propane stove here. Now, there was a recall on it while we were gone. We decided to just risk it, but keep an eye on it. So there was a chance of some gas leaking and a fire hazard, but we just kept an eye on it, and we didn't have any issues. But that was kind of a risk we decided to take, because we did use the propane stove, but we also used the microwave a lot. We also used our Instant Pot, and we also brought along an induction cooktop that we could use inside or outside. And then we also had our Blackstone griddle, which is in the outdoor kitchen compartment. So we had a lot of options of whether we wanted to cook inside, outside, whether we wanted to use propane or we wanted to conserve our propane and use electricity, or vice versa. So we had a lot of options. Oh, and we had our little electric tea kettle as well. So that we used every morning for coffee, tea, oatmeal, whatever we wanted to heat up water for. So that's really convenient. We also had plenty of counter space. When we weren't using the stove, this was counter space. When we weren't using the sink, this was counter space. Now, we did add a little command hook on the end here to store the cover to the sink, so that got it out of the way when we wanted to use the sink. And then if we needed more counter space, because you imagine if you're using the sink and the stove, you don't really have much room. But yeah, the other side of this cover is a cutting board, so we use that as our cutting board, and it was fit nice up there. But so for a little extra space, we would use the lagoon table. Now we could raise this up to the height of the counter, but we found we never did. We just kind of use this as a staging area, not really for cutting or preparing. And then we could also use the dinette table as a staging area as well. So a lot of times if I was cooking, Keith would go retreat to the back on his bed, or he'd be outside, so he'd be out of the way. So I really had basically all of this space to cook with. So that really worked out well, assuming we weren't cooking outside. Now, if we were really concerned about having our air conditioning running while we were using our induction cooktop or our Instant Pot, and it possibly being too much of a load on our inverter, is we would actually take the Instant Pot or induction cooktop outside and plug it directly into the 20 amp outlet on the pedestal. This was assuming, well, if we were running air conditioner, we were at someplace where we were plugged in, because we didn't run the air conditioner without being plugged into shore power. But most campsite pedestals have both. Well, a lot of times they'll have three: 20 amp, 30 amp, and 50 amp. And we would typically plug into the 30 amp, which meant the 20 amp was sitting there not being used. And we're assuming it was a second circuit. At least it bypassed our inverter. So we would just plug the induction cooktop or Instant Pot directly into the 20 amp on the pedestal, and then our AC was running on a different circuit, and so we were fine. Now, when we first took possession of the EKKO, we were having issues with the microwave. A lot of times when you would push the button, the door wouldn't open, and so, there isn't really anything to grab a hold of, so we added this little suction cup. And Winnebago, before we left on the trip, actually replaced the microwave. Well, we didn't get very far into the trip, and the button failed again. So luckily we had brought the suction cup with us, so it would, you would hear it and it would like release, but it wouldn't actually open. So then you could pull it open with the suction cup. But as you can see, it's working now. And every now and then it wouldn't work, and then it would start working again. So we're just going to live with it and have our little suction cup. I don't even remember where this came from. It was from something else. But it came in handy. Now, this Magma cookware was something new we were traveling with this year, and we, for the most part, really love it. If you notice, it doesn't take up much room. You get two detachable handles. So there's a saucepan there and a lid that fits both the saucepan and the larger pot. And then you've got three nested smaller pots, and the handle all fits onto there. So that and it's really it's actually quite heavy, but real nice thick cookware, cooks really well. And then another pot that'll fit each one of those smaller pots. The only issue we found, and hopefully I won't find the one, I forget which one it is, but if you notice, I don't know if you can see, the actual lip on these pots is pretty thin. And I don't know if one of these pots just has a little burr or something, but twice I sliced my hand open on it while I was washing it. I really need to check in and figure out where that was. I mean, one, I was like running my hand along it, but another time it seemed like I just touched it and it sliced my hand open. So I don't know why they made that edge so thin, but that was an issue with us, and hopefully it's just a burr or something on one of those pots, and I need to investigate that and get that resolved, because cutting your hand open isn't fun. Now, what we did find was really nice about the microwave is Winnebago put in a switch between the microwave and the air conditioner. So if you had the air conditioner running and you went to use the microwave, typically that might be a little too much load, especially if the compressor's kicking on. So they had a switch whenever the microwave came on, and it would automatically switch off the air conditioner. And then when the microwave stopped running, it would automatically switch the air conditioner back on. And we found that really nice. Now, that container that I had the pot stored in is actually our rinse bin for doing dishes. And we would just put it down here on the lagoon table, and one of us would be washing and one would be drying. And so it was really kind of convenient just to have that right there. So it was plenty of room to work. You know, your dirty dishes could be stacked up over here. So we really found there was really sufficient space to work in. Now there was also plenty of storage. The Instant Pots in there. We have most of our silverware, utensils, you know, dishes. The induction top and pots went in there. And then we use above the dinette here is basically part of our pantry where all our groceries went. And then also, I think this is what they originally called the pantry, and we'd put heavier things in there, like cans and bottles of stuff. And then if we really found we ran out of space, now most of the time we shopped about a week's worth of groceries at a time, and usually we had plenty of room, but sometimes, you know, you're buying the next container of coffee and you don't really have a place for it. So we actually would steal a little space here in the bedroom down here. I don't know if you can see that down here. It's kind of shaded. But we would just I think we put our back stock of beer and whatever, you know, extra box of cereal or something would go in there. So we kind of found places for things. Now, the one thing we probably will look into changing next time is we have all our silverware in this. I think this was originally a pencil bag, but it's got a nice flat bottom. There was actually another zippered pouch that I have a little paring knife in. And for the most part, this worked out great because I could, you know, you could take this over the picnic table. It's got all the silverware, and you could lift it out of the way to get to the cooking utensils down here. But having all your silverware in one compartment, I mean, you wouldn't think it would be that hard. There's only like 4 salad forks, 4 regular forks, 4 teaspoons. You would think you'd be able to find what you needed quickly, but we found that to be a little bit of a pain with it all in there together. So I think what would make this ideal is it would have some dividers in there. So I don't know if I can find a bag like that or have to make it. But and the other thing was this net in the front. The forks like to kind of get caught up in that net. So that didn't work out real well either. So we'll have to see what else we can come up with there. Now the fridge was a big step up for us from the camper van. There's a lot more space. There was room in this bottom drawer to put tall items in. And the freezer, not only could we have ice cube trays in there, we actually found we could get 2, not 1, but 2 half gallons of ice cream in there. So that was really a big plus. Well, sort of. I gained 10 pounds over the season because we never were out of ice cream. But there's a couple things that we don't care about the fridge. The one is if you would turn the temperature controls, and this has been brought out by some other people too, is if you set the temperature settings on the fridge to be cold enough to keep your ice cream frozen, then things like lettuce would start to freeze in the refrigerator because there's not separate controls for the freezer and the refrigerator. We're not at to the point where we're going to swap out our fridge, and we found that if you keep the kind of leafy part of the lettuce towards the front instead of the back, it was less likely to freeze because it seemed like the ice build up in the back of the refrigerator. In fact, we had more ice building up in the fridge than we did in the freezer. So about once every 2 months, we'd have to come in and defrost the fridge because it would build up pretty thick on the back there. So having separate controls would be nice. The other thing we found is these shelves on the door are really narrow. They are just wide enough to get a can of beer or can of soda in there. Anything wider than that's not going to fit. So a lot of condiments that I normally would put in the fridge door don't fit in this door. The other thing was if you put tall items. Now this is where, I believe this is how we had it set up. So some of our taller items would be here. And then we'd put, like, even if we put cans of beer, we had to be careful of what we put in here because it actually interfered with these hinges on the freezer and would keep the freezer from closing all the way. So you kind of have to be a little careful on that. The other thing that we didn't care for was, I don't know why, but these little notches on the front of these shelves, that corner is really sharp. I may have to go in and see if I can file that down or something, because if I pull the drawer out before I take things out of it, it's not an issue, but I would get lazy, and I always had my iced tea pitcher in here, and I would always be grabbing it, and a couple of times I would catch my knuckle on that, and it would tear it open. As you can tell, I'm the one that's usually getting hurt around here, not Keith. Don't ask me why, but so just be careful. That corner is pretty sharp. It would be nice if that was a little rounded over. And the final thing about the fridge is this freezer. If you notice, it opens down, which is kind of an awkward thing, and it's spring loaded, so it won't stay down by itself. Some people complain because they're short and they have a hard time seeing in. We're tall. I have no problem seeing in, so that wasn't an issue for us. But if you can imagine, you're trying to put in a ice cube tray full of water and you're trying to slide it under something, so you have to have something hold down the door while one hand has this ice cube tray and another hand's trying to lift up whatever you're trying to slide it under, which is really 3 hands, which you don't have. It's kind of hard to get 2 people in here too. Sometimes you could put like a half-gallon ice cream on here to help hold it open, but then you kind of have to maneuver around it because it's blocking the opening. So yeah, it's a little awkward in that sense. I don't know what would be better if it was something that either flipped up or if at least you could kind of latch it open, at least temporarily, so you could get things in and out might be better. Now the Winnebago came with a fire extinguisher here. If you notice, we've replaced it with this, it's called an Element fire stick. Luckily we've never had to use these, but from what we've researched on these just seem like really great fire extinguishers. They'll work on any fire. They don't have anything toxic in them. They never expire. They're easy to use. They don't leave any residue, so they're not going to destroy things as you put a fire out. So we really like them. We had brought one along in our outdoor kitchen. We added this one and replaced the Winnebago one. And then we actually mounted one here in the bedroom. And then we have a 4th one. So here it is, the one we just have sitting in the door of the driver's door. That we envision to be nice and handy. You know, in case there's an engine fire, you can easily grab that as you're getting out. So some people might say it's overkill to have that many fire extinguishers, but they're in places where we would expect to have to use them. You know, the one for an engine fire. One in the bedroom because it's at night. You know, you want to be able to have something quick and handy to grab. One in the kitchen, which might be where you'd have a fire start. And then one in the outdoor kitchen because you've got a fire with, you know, the Blackstone griddle or something. So we're prepared. Part 5 is the bathroom. The bathroom is actually another big step up. Oh, see, I'm already forgetting. The light switch is on this side. But overall, we really like having the bathroom. We didn't have a bathroom in our camper van. All we had was the one sink that we used both for our dishes and for our bodies. So, and we had an emergency camping toilet and not a real toilet. So we really love this design. It's really a space-saving design. It's I think modeled after some European designs. So if you notice, there's a nice sink here. There's a cassette toilet, 5-gallon cassette toilet. And then you're wondering, where's the shower? So hold on, we'll show you where that is. We'll move our waste baskets out of the way here. And we move this little wall over, and voila. As you can see, we've winterized already. We've got a little antifreeze there, but so then this snaps open here. Get that. So now you take your shower here, and yes, you're using the same floor, so technically it's called a wet bath, but if you notice, your sink and toilet stay dry. The other thing is there's this curtain here, and you do want to remember to close the curtain when you're taking a shower, because it not only keeps your towels dry, which are hanging here on these convenient hooks that Winnebago provides, but it also keeps the water from running out onto the floor out here. So don't worry, it doesn't take you long to remember to do that after you've flooded the kitchen once or maybe twice. And so, yeah, we hung our bath towels here. And actually that worked out really well. We liked having them there. And even when we would go and use the campground showers, if you pull this away from the wall, because there's a magnet that kind of holds it there, but leave that snap still attached, you can reach behind there and get the towel in and out. So that's kind of nice. Kind of have to do it blind to find the hook, but that's kind of nice. Now, to dry the towels, once we normally wouldn't put them up there, because you notice they're not really in a good spot to dry really well. So we would either hang them on the back of like the front seats or hang them outside on our camp chairs. And if they were still a little damp when we were getting ready to go down the road, we would lay them out flat on our beds. So that's kind of how we got the towels dry, those towels dry. We did install this clothesline, which stretches across here. And we did use it, but we didn't use it for the towels. For one, it would probably be a little tight to get both towels up there at the same time. But also, you lose your access to your sink and your toilet when you have a lot of large stuff hanging from there. But we would use this for like bathing suits, or a life jacket or something that was really dripping wet. And it's nice because it's dripping down onto a floor with a drain and not somewhere else in the rig. And that's if you don't have room or it's bad weather and you can't let it dry outside. So we did use this, just not for our bath towels. Now for our other towels, we hung the hand towel here on this little Winnebago thing that was there. We added a couple command hooks for our washcloths. We added yet another one over here. This one was what we would use to clean the bathroom with, wipe off the counter or something. And then we'd have yet another cloth. This isn't the actual one we used. I couldn't find it. I think what we used was a little bigger than this one. But we would take this and we would put it down on the floor outside the bathroom. So it was kind of a little extra insurance just to make sure nothing spilled out. And it also kind of served as a little shower mat when you get out of the shower. So that's where we kept that. We had added these zippered compartments, kind of toiletry kits, and they're Velcro. They're on Velcro. And we envisioned that we would, if we were going to use a campground shower or bathroom for something, we would just pull that off real quickly and go to and have our toiletries with us. However, we didn't really use them that way. These just became extra storage. For one, the Velcro is really strong, so it's hard to get them on and off the wall, so we never really did that. The other thing is, the things we used every day, like toothbrushes and all that kind of stuff, we liked having in the medicine cabinet because it was much easier to access. So the things that we would want to take with us normally weren't in these bags anyway. The one thing we didn't like about this medicine cabinet is this lip is really short. Now down here we had things in little bins, so they kind of stayed where they were. But we had some tall items in here, and it never seemed to be an issue for Keith, but it always seemed to be for me. It's always me. When I get things in and out, I would knock other things off out of there because there was really nothing to hold it in there. Now I know kind of why they made it so short is because you've got this hinge in the way here, so you couldn't have made it taller. But I'm going to see if I can rig something up to help hold taller items in there so they aren't toppling out if you bump them. Now it wasn't an issue when you were going down the road as long as you remembered to latch that door shut, because that would keep everything in there. So it's not an issue of things falling out while you're traveling down the road. It's just if you're clumsy like me and knock something and it happens to fall off the shelf. Now another thing that we didn't really pay that much attention to, this is a full indicator on the toilet, and it seemed like it eventually turns red, but it seemed like it turned red like almost right before it was really full, which was kind of really too late for you to really know. But actually it's not that big of a deal. When you go to flush the toilet, you could just look in there and see how full it is. So having the indicator, we didn't really pay attention to that at all. Now this toilet swivels, but once we found a comfortable position for it, we never turned it again. And I don't even know if it still will turn or not, but that's where we leave it. We're comfortable sitting on it there. It's out of the way, and we never touch it again. Now if you notice these waste baskets, we added these and we like them, but we originally had them mounted on the wall back here and they just kind of snapped on there. But as we were going down the road, you take a lot of vibrations. Those mounts didn't hold, and so they came off. But we found just setting them on the floor here, it actually makes it easier to get them in and out when you want to take the shower. And there's not a whole lot of room for them to fall over. And we generally empty the garbage on our way out of the campground anyway. So we hadn't really had an issue with them falling over. So just leaving them sit on the floor really worked well for us. And we use one for garbage and one for recyclables. Now I'd like to say we always recycled our recyclables, but there were times we go for stretches where we couldn't find any place to recycle. And I mean, it was nice having a container and we let that fill up until we found a place. But there was a couple occasions where it'd be overflowing and we're like, we have to get rid of it because we just don't have any more storage. So I hate to admit that we actually threw away some recyclables on a couple of occasions. But it is nice to have a separate container to let that build up and give yourself an opportunity to find a place to recycle. Now, if you notice, the light switch for in here was out on the other side of the door, which is kind of inconvenient, which is why we installed this motion detected light. Now, I would almost never turn on this overhead light, and I'd always use this. Keith didn't like to rely on this when he was usually in the toilet. He was afraid it would turn off on him, and I don't know, the toilet's not moving, but if it helps improve his aim, then I guess I'm all for it. So now this motion sensor light, it's on a battery charge, so we found we had to recharge that, and it recharges with USB-C, I think, about once a month. And about every other time we'd go around to our exterior compartments where we also installed these, and it pulls right off. It's Velcroed on there, so it pulls right down. And we'd go around every other time and recharge the ones in the exterior compartments because they didn't come on and off as often as they did in the bathroom, because that was quite a few times a day. Now, as I mentioned, the cassette toilet's only 5 gallons. So how long does that last you? Well, we don't always use our own toilet. So if we are someplace like a campground that has a decent bathhouse, we will use those toilets as much as possible and avoid using this only when it wasn't convenient to use another one. So we would use this one in the middle of the night if it was raining or bad weather outside, or we just didn't feel like going over to the campground or wherever we were. So we generally could get the 5 gallons to last us about 2 to 3 days, maybe 4 if we were really sparse about using it. We actually went to the Albuquerque Balloon Fiesta where we were boondocking there in their RV lot for 8 nights, 9 days, and we made it last. But we were really disciplined about using the provided porta potties and avoided using this because to get it flushed or dumped there was $30 for a service to come around and dump it. And I'm not even sure they would do a cassette, but you would think they would. But $30 seemed like a rather pricey service for 5 gallons for a toilet. But it was $30 whether it was, a huge black tank or a 5-gallon cassette. So, and it was another $30 for fresh water. So we wanted to conserve our fresh water as well because the toilet uses a little bit of fresh water, not a lot. It depends on how good you are at flushing it. Part 6, the bedroom. So this was one of the other reasons we got the EKKO over our camper van, is to have this separation of space. So someone can be in the kitchen or in the dinette or up front. Another person can be back here in the bedroom in a comfortable spot. And we can sit up in bed, which is something we could not do in our camper van. So we like to sit up. Some people sit up on this wall because they like to be facing forward, but we're so tall and that just seems like a scrunch or you're just kind of slouched. So I actually like sitting up in bed. I don't know if you can see that. Sit up with my back on this wall, and this is very comfortable. We'll both sit in our beds and we'll put a laptop here and watch videos. So that's really comfortable. So, in fact, Keith hangs out here a lot during the day. If it's not nice outside. Now, a couple things we did back here is we did add these 2 DC fans. This just helps again with airflow. You do have these 2 wonderful big windows that, for one, you can see quite a bit. So especially if you're sitting up in bed. But you get nice cross ventilation in here, or you can have these open and then you turn the max air fan on and you get a nice breeze going all the way through the rig. But the fans just help facilitate that, and if you want something blowing directly on you. If you notice, it was like the last couple weeks of our trip, the cord broke in these shades. So it actually broke within our warranty period. So we just have some parts on order, and our dealer's going to be fixing those soon. The one part we found that these screens, for the most part, seem to keep out the bugs, but there was one night where we seemed to get bit up by no-see-ums, so evidently these aren't quite sealed enough to keep out no-see-ums. So we actually purchased a essential oil diffuser. We've heard that can help with bugs. Now, we haven't really had an issue since then, but I don't know if that's just because there weren't any bugs or if that's really doing something, but we'll run that in the evening if it seems a little buggy out. And it's just kind of nice to have on anyway. The other change we made was we use these upper cabinets for clothing. And on the driver's side cabinet, there's an AC outlet, and there was a DC outlet there as well. But we have a lot of stuff here. If you notice, we have a speaker, the diffuser, the 2 fans, if we're charging a laptop, an iPad, our 2 iPhones, our electric toothbrush, our electric razor. So we have a lot of things plugged in here. So we actually moved that one DC outlet and moved it up over here. So we just had more outlets that we needed instead of trying to run wires into the cabinet. So that worked out pretty well. Now we started out this season with these nice thick comforters on our bed. But Keith found that was a little too bulky for him. They call these beds twin size, but they're really more of a cot size, so they're a little bit smaller than a twin. And he just found that bulkiness, especially when it was hot weather, to get that comforter out of the way. He didn't care for that, so we actually switched to this thin wool blanket, and that's what he used. And if, let's see if I can find it here. And then if he would get too cold, he'd actually pull out. We have this little spare Thermarest blanket that he would pull out if he got too cold. Now, I actually preferred the thick comforter. I seem to be able to manage with it. And it might have been partially because in this wall on this side, there's a big metal bracket inside the wall, and that was to support the bat wing, which is an option we didn't get, but that metal plate is still in there. So this wall does get a little cold. Some people complain it's way too cold. I didn't really have that issue, but then I had this nice thick comforter that, you know, sometimes I would just have up against the wall too. So I didn't really find that to be a big issue, but that wall does get cold. Now, also along the issue with the size, we're both 6 foot tall, and these beds are just barely long enough for us. So Keith actually switched pillows. So he started out with a normal size pillow, but he actually switched to a smaller pillow just to give him a little bit more headroom, I guess you would call it, you know, length on the bed, because he didn't have to be, because a bigger pillow kind of pulls you away from the wall more. So I didn't seem to have any problem with that, so I was fine. My pillow's kind of pretty squishy, so I didn't have an issue with that. Now, the one issue with sitting up a bed against this wall as opposed to that wall is there was no place to put a drink. So we installed cup holders. So on the passenger side, it's right here by the window, and that's nice and convenient for Keith there when he's sitting up in bed there. But unfortunately, over on this side, you notice there was no place to put it. So we actually put it down here in the kind of in the hallway, which it works. It's actually more convenient for Keith to use there than for me over here, but it's a little awkward, but I can make it work. Let's see if you can see that there. So I kind of have to reach behind me, but it works. A little awkward, but it works. Now, what also helped keep the bugs at bay is we have these little bug zappers. So we have one here in the bedroom, but we don't leave this one on at night because we feel kind of it attracts bugs, and we don't really want to attract bugs to the bedroom while we're sleeping. So we would turn this one off at night, but we have another one up here in the front by the door. If you can see, it's full of bugs. So yes, it does work. So we'd usually leave that one on all the time to kind of get whatever bugs work their way into the RV, because you will get bugs inside. I don't care how careful you are and how much you keep all the windows and doors closed. You go in and out, you're going to get bugs. Now, we really love all the windows in the Winnebago. It's great having all of this, being able to have all the views out, to get all the ventilation, and be able to, you know, have these open with the screens pulled down, or even with the shades up. You know, you can hear the crickets and the frogs at night and the birds in the morning. So as much as possible, I like sleeping with the windows open. But they did get to be a little bit of a pain. Now let's see if it'll... Now right now it's going to work. As we try to keep these hinges lubricated as much as possible, and if they get loose, we tighten them, and that seemed to help. But they're rather finicky sometimes, and they would get stuck. And of course, it's not going to do it now. But and so you go like this, and it wouldn't. You kind of have to. It's kind of up. You kind of have to lift up to get it to uncatch and be able to close. So sometimes it would get stuck open, and you couldn't get it past. You know, it'd keep hitting the kind of the latch, and it wouldn't close. There was a couple evenings we actually got the screwdriver out and disconnected the hinge so we could close it for the night instead of trying to deal with it. So they are kind of a pain in the butt sometimes when you can't get them to close, or you can't get them to stay open. You know, it just kind of won't catch. The one thing we did discover was initially we thought you had to pull it all the way up in order to have it come back down. But that's not really true. If you have it catched here, all you have to do is lift it kind of almost to the next stop point, because there's different catch points. The other thing we do like about it is you can kind of have them cracked open. If you notice, there's like a 1/2-inch gap here. You can have them cracked open, but yet locked. So if you want to leave the rig and you want it secure, but you still want ventilation to come through, we would do that a lot when we leave the rig, and we turn the fans on so you get fresh air coming in through these cracks, but yet you feel secure that no one's going to be able to, well, I mean, someone always can break in, but it'll make it a lot harder. They can't easily get in because they can't open up that window. The other thing is it also prevents the wind from catching it. So if just as easily as, oop, I missed one somewhere. There it is. Having it like this, if you get a strong gust of wind that gets up under there, it can start flapping your windows. So in high winds, you want to make sure you close those windows, or at least get them down into the lock position. It was also nice if it was raining. You could actually, now see, is it going to stick on me? There we go. You could usually at least get down to this position if it was raining and not get water in. So you had to kind of pay attention. If the wind was blowing, it might come in. But that was nice too, to still be able to have ventilation without water coming in. Now, if you notice, when you come into the bedroom here, there's a couple step-ups. And that's because there's things under there. But we were a little bit concerned. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. Being 6 foot, I can still, I don't know if you can see this, I'm on the first step. I still have some space. Now, if I get up on the second space, I got to be a little bent over. But, so there's still plenty of room in here to, get dressed and move around. But we were concerned, especially in the middle of the night, you get up to go to the bathroom, that we might forget their steps there, or have troubles figuring out exactly where the edge is in the dark and not wanting to wake up the other person. So we added these kind of glow-in-the-dark tape to the steps. And that actually worked out pretty well. We were concerned about how long it would stay glowing during the night. But every time we got up in the night, it seemed like there was enough of glow left on the tape that it enabled us to tell where the steps were. So we were really happy with that. Now, we also put a strip here above the door. That was totally useless. We were hoping, because sometimes when I go out the door, I hit my head on that. But the tape does no good of preventing me from doing that. So that was kind of worthless. I just have to be careful. Every now and then I would forget, and especially if I just came in and I forgot something, I would turn around real quick and boom, I'd be hitting my head. Even Keith hit his head once, which as you can tell, I'm the one that's more accident prone. Now, the EKKO does come with this curtain that allows you to kind of close off this bedroom area. That actually turns out to be pretty nice in the morning if one of us gets up before the other. So we can kind of close this off. It is kind of a wimpy curtain. If you notice, it doesn't kind of hang real well. So if I was coming back here and I wanted to, because sometimes I'd use this if we were parked somewhere and I wanted to quickly come back here and change clothes, and the front may be open, so I don't want to flash anybody. So I would come back here, I would pull the shades up on the 2 windows back here and pull the curtain, but I would have a tendency to kind of tuck the edges behind the mattresses to try to get a little better coverage of the curtain. And it was funny, just today I noticed that, I don't know if you can see that, there's these little clips that allow the curtain to kind of hold the curtain open, which I never noticed before. So we had just been using it like this. I'm like, man, these things don't really stay open. But yeah, the things, you finally notice eventually. But yeah, so use those little clips to help, because that really helps a lot. But still, it kind of hangs and doesn't really kind of cover very well. But it works. Maybe someday we'll replace it with something different, but what they provided works. Now, another mod we made that we really liked, there originally was a door on this wardrobe cabinet, but we took it off and we found a nice hamper that kind of fit nicely in that space. So this is really convenient. So when you're in here changing your clothes, you can just toss your dirty clothes in there. You don't have to open up a cabinet that you're kind of standing in the way of. And so we really like that. So this comes with a liner that we would, pull it out. It's like tied in the back. Keith thought it was a pain to get on and off, but I don't mind it so much. It's just tied on there. And but then we also had this kind of backpack laundry bag. So especially if this is really full, we'll either pull the whole liner out, throw it in here, and then if you're going to, the campground laundry that's, quite a few blocks away, you can just throw this on your back. It's so much more convenient and comfortable than trying to lug around a big bag of something or a hamper or whatever. And if you really have gone a long time between laundry and you've got enough that you can fill up both of them, that actually works well too. So we really liked that laundry setup and having that door off. That worked out well. So thanks for watching. And if you want more details, you can look in the description below for a link to our related blog posts. So check that out. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Ta-ta for now.